So first of all, a very good morning to everyone. It's really good to see such a large number of people coming to the Indore study group of Krishnamurti teachings. I'm especially grateful to Dr. Gajanan Rao and Mr. Harsh Tankha, who has been very kind to join us again. Our speaker for today is Mr. S. Gopalan, who is a known figure in Krishnamurti circles. But for others who don't know him, I'll give a brief introduction. Mr. S. Gopalan is a former teacher of the Valley School, Bangalore. He has a bachelor's degree in physics and is a chartered accountant by profession. After 8 years in the industry, he came in contact with Krishji in 1980 and became a parent of the Valley School in 1982 and joined as a teacher in 1983. He presently resides in the campus of the Valley School. He has written 2 beautiful books, From Bud to Blossom, and the second one, which has come quite recently, which is a sequel of the first one, 1+1, Infinity or Eternity. It's a pleasure to have you, sir, and I'm really, really thankful that you agreed to our request and you have agreed to talk to us. Mr. Gopalan will be talking about a theme which is very interesting, J. Krishnamurti, more misunderstood than understood. With these words, I'll just tell you the format of this talk. You will take about 45 minutes to maybe 50 minutes to complete your talk. And after that, Dr. Gajanan Rao and Sri Harsh Tankha will share their observations on it for about 10 to 15 minutes each. And after that, we'll take questions from the participants. So please go ahead, sir. Welcome.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to present my views at this forum. The title of the meeting is rather provocative, and it is meant to invite a lot of challenges and a lot of hopefully animated discussion, if nothing else, later in the talk. Between 1983 and 1986, Krishnamurti referred to the story of Nachiketa from the Katha Upanishad at least 5 times. And it has also come in the Kitchen Chronicles. So I'm beginning with this deliberately because this is the first misconception that I would like to say we have made about Krishnamurti, which is that he discarded all spiritual texts. He did not discard anything. What he asked was, why do you believe that there is God? Why do you believe in anything that you hold dear? So the question really that he asked was, why do you believe? Why do you follow? Why do you worship these spiritual texts? They are, after all, only words. Words cannot be sacred. What is your motive in doing all this? This was the question put to us. The texts themselves were never commented upon. So in the Sanatan Dharma of this land, there are said to be 108 Upanishads, of which maybe 15 or 20 are available to us today. But I would say Sri Ramana Maharishi is another Upanishad, Sri Aurobindo is another Upanishad, Krishnamurti is another Upanishad, and these Upanishads go on adding, because what after all is an Upanishad? Upanishad literally means a student sitting down devotedly near the teacher and listening. Now, do we not sit in the same way and listen to Krishnamurti, whether it is live or recorded? All the great teachers, be it Ramana, Aurobindo, Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, did they not do exactly the same? Except that each one of them did it in their own words expression, language, and style. So, my question is, are we mimicking Krishnamurti because he seems to be realized and has said that he has never read a single scripture? So, and that brings me to the question, why do we feel the need to mimic, copy, or imitate? What is our motive behind? Is it something that we want to acquire, we want to get? And who is it that has this want? So these questions come to me from listening to a statement like that. Now, Krishnamurti has said, word is not the thing. Now, communication is the attempt to convey the essence of a feeling or a perception of experiencing. Word is only a symbol, and thought can only function through symbols and images. All language is the outcome of thought. So then we come to these two words which Krishnamurti used again and again, fact and reality. Is not all fact and reality within the realm of thought? So when a statement is made by Krishnamurti, that's a fact, undeniable, true fact. There's no argument with this fact. But still, all the facts remain in the domain of thought, and all reality is in the domain of thought. So, fact and reality cannot be truth. They can, one may say, they are the expression of truth through thought with its limitations. But truth is far greater, and the word cannot capture it in its entirety ever. So then this question comes, what is understanding? And along with it, one of our other misconceptions, can the intellect understand? I think this is the biggest illusion before us in the realm of the intellect, that intellect can understand, and education is the culprit for really bringing in this, fostering this illusion. Now, thought can only function in duality by separating the subject from the object, from the thinker from the thought. This is an entirely illusory separation created by thought. It's not it's not the truth. But in the separation, the identity of the thinker is maintained. So, is not assimilation intrinsic to understanding? If you take the example of food, so long as food is in the digestive system, it has its identity as food, whatever it is. But once it is absorbed and then it is assimilated and it has become part of the body, does it have a separate identity again? Does it not become one? Is not understanding similar? In understanding, there is no separation, there is no identity. It has to be one intrinsic part. And here comes the limitation of language. In day-to-day usage of English language, knowing, understanding, perceiving are all synonyms. And at that level, it's very difficult to explain what is the difference between knowing, understanding, perceiving, and then knowledge. So sometimes I feel it's beneficial to think in another language, not translate. Translation is a comparative study, an analysis by the intellect, but thinking in a language involves something else. If you look at the English language, its roots come from Latin and Greek. If you look at any of the Indian languages, the root of that is Sanskrit. Now, language and culture are intertwined, and thinking in multiple languages facilitates understanding independently through those languages. It's a matter of perspective, not thought understanding. Perspective is different from thought. Just to give a very simple example, if you wanted to say goodbye in English, you would just say that, goodbye. But if you were speaking from French, now the French have a different degree of separation there. If it's a goodbye with the idea of meeting you very soon, they say au revoir. But if it's a permanent kind of a goodbye, you don't expect to meet somebody again, then you say adieu. And therefore, that language has that communication of the difference between adieu and au revoir cannot be translated. It's a feeling. So language and culture, as I said, are intertwined. You can't understand the culture and its priorities without understanding that language. And the language reveals the deepest as well as the superficial aspects of the culture from which it has emanated. And therefore, thinking in different languages allows a different perspective to happen inside. Now, Krishnamurti said this many times, you are not listening to the speaker, you are listening to yourself. And he went into great length into the process of listening. Now, we can see in ourselves that the process of listening begins with sensations. The sensations come together in the brain. There is that instant of perception, and an instant later, thought arises, attempts to capture the essence of that perception and articulate it or record it. Now, are not these three distinct, separate processes which we think is one continuous and unbroken process? Also, even the very sensations sending in the stimuli, is it a continuous process, or is it, if I may say so, a series of pulses, discrete pulses? So when I articulate what I listen to, that articulation must come through the entire thought and its conditioning, must it not? Now, that raises the question, what is thought? Now, we know that thought arises from the brain and memory. Both these are required for thought to happen. But what is thought? It doesn't seem to be something solid. It seems to be more in the nature of a field, like a magnetic field which emanates from the core of a magnet. And thought also seems to have two sides of the same coin. One side is recognition and the other side is imagination. I don't know if it's possible for you, but I have tried. It doesn't seem to be possible to have only one aspect of thought. One cannot only recognize and let imagination not happen. And one cannot imagine without referring to some memory. So they seem to be two sides of the same coin. Once you enter into thought, there must be recognition and there must be an imagination. And in that imagination is the conclusion, everything involved. So that was the first misconception. The second misconception I would like to state, and will probably generate a little more heat, is Krishnamurti never negated tradition. What he said was, we accept, unfortunately, the authority established by tradition. Can tradition bring order? The word tradition means to hand over, hand across, And also, if you go into that word deeply, you will find the meaning. It also means being treacherous. Please listen carefully. The word tradition not only implies the accepted meaning to hand over from father to son, the whole movement of tradition, but also it implies to be a traitor to the present. So authority is not negated. What is really being asked is, why do we feel the compulsion again to feel this authority which tradition seems to exert? Is not all language itself tradition handed over? Hence, is not all thought tradition? Therefore, should we throw the baby out with the bathwater by saying that anything that is old, how old? We don't say, but anything that is old is tradition. So tradition facilitates one kind of an authority, the authority of it being old by so many years and all that which comes with it. Why do we give importance to authority? Is it not because authority enables us to dominate? And this urge to dominate, is it an urge of the human being, or is it an urge that we have inherited from the animal, which is still deeply in part of our brain? Because we can understand in the realm of the animal, the need to dominate. Does a human being need to dominate? So if you look at the various kinds of authority, I listed 12. There's the authority of might, the authority of tradition, the authority of belief, the authority of experience, the authority of knowledge, the authority of the interpreter, the authority of lineage, the authority of memory, authority of parents, authority of teacher, authority of the law, authority of what others say. Of these 12 uh, forms of authority, only the authority of might is related to the physical body. A tall policeman or a tall soldier is impressive by his very size. But all the other 11 elements are only at the level of the psychological, available to the intellect to exert. So authority allows the possessor to dominate. It enables the smaller to dominate the larger. And just like David was able to overcome Goliath by that manipulation, the intellect uses its capability to manipulate to overcome its something that seems larger than the intellect. And is that not why we have said knowledge is power? Because knowledge gives the ability to manipulate the opponent. So this compulsion to dominate, does it not arise out of insecurity alone? When you feel completely secure, is there an urge to want to dominate at all? So now we come to the next misconception. I put this because this has been covered a little bit in the books. The problem of thought. Now, the misconception here, if I may say so, comes because of taking what we hear literally. The whole problem of thought, creating fear and trying to give significance to life. If one readily goes into it, one sees it to be a problem of thought versus being. So one asks, what is the place of thought in our life? Seeing, contact, sensation, then thought takes over. You, the image created of you sitting in the car driving it. This we have heard many, many times. Now, my question here is, thought is a tool. It's an instrument. It has no life or energy of its own. Thought is a field that arises from brain and memory. It's a capability of the body. Why is thought a problem? Or could I paraphrase that question to ask, who operates thought? We assume that thinker, the self, me, mine operates thought. This is not hair splitting, but asking this question then enables another question to follow, and which is there anybody else or anything else that can operate thought other than the thinker? So, what causes the thinker to rise at all? Now, this has been called Maya, the greatest mystery, and Krishnamurti has narrated that story of Narada asking Vishnu, what causes Maya? So, I won't go into the Narada story today, that will take too much time. But is it that as thought itself has no substance, the thinker has no substance either, and therefore, deep down, self, me, mine is aware that it has no substance. Once thought switches off, the I is no more, and therefore, it deludes itself into believing that it has all the capabilities and qualities of life itself. And is that not why I say I understand? And is this not the beginning, the basis of all illusion? Now, Krishnamurti asked this question, can intelligence operate thought? And this intelligence that he is talking about is not the manipulative capability of the intellect. We have to keep that in mind. Intelligence is not heritage, whereas consciousness is heritage. Do not translate intelligence as God. Now, that intelligence can use knowledge, that intelligence can use thought to operate in the field of knowledge, and therefore its operation is never dualistic. So, David Bohm responds, the language of intelligence must be different from the language of thought. And Krishnamurti answers, intelligence has no language, but it can use language. The moment it has language, it is back again in the field. That intelligence having no language is not personal. It is not mine or yours. The next misconception is that Krishnamurti has negated all practices associated with religion. So he said, similarly, religion has very little importance in our lives. You may go to the temple, do puja, wear the sacred thread, repeat words and mantras ad nauseum, but that does not mean you are a religious person. That is merely the expression of a mechanical mind of very little content. And on the topic of mantra, at one particular talk, Krishnamurti said, if you repeat every morning for 20 minutes, in the afternoon 20 minutes, and another 20 minutes in the evening, they bring you a certain quality of quietness, this constant repetition. You can just as well repeat Ave Maria or Coca-Cola or any other mechanical repetition. So, listening to talks like this, we do form an impression that any mantra, any chanting is repetition. At another place, Krishnamurti talks about the religious spirit. A human being is a true human being when the scientific spirit and the true religious spirit go together. The scientific mind is very factual. Discovery is its mission, its perception. It sees things through a microscope, through a telescope. Everything is to be seen actually as it is. From that perception, science draws conclusions, builds up theories. Such a mind moves from fact to fact. The religious mind is completely alone. It is explosive, new, young, fresh, innocent. The innocent mind, the young mind, the mind that is extraordinarily pliable, subtle, has no anchor. It is only such a mind that can experience that which you call God, that which is not measurable. And in that context, Krishnamurti talked about mantra in a very different way at another talk. The Sanskrit word mantra means man. Man means to reflect, not becoming or being. Reflect about it, think about it, ponder about it, meditate about it. And thra means destroy or put away, deny all self centered activity. Now, this act of reflecting, thinking, pondering, meditating, is this a repetitive activity? So, what is reflection? Is it an activity of thought at all? And Krishnamurti, when he comes to questioning, points out if you remain with the question and not try to find an answer, the question itself begins to unfold. So anything that facilitates reflection is then valuable. They could be words of a teacher, it could be a tree in the field, it could be the line of mountains. What is important is the act of reflection. So that gives me the next misconception. When Krishnamurti talks of living in the past, that is, you live in the past, don't you? Just think of it. You are the past and you live in the past. And that is your life, right? Now, I would like to ask, is it at all possible to live in the past? Or it is only possible to bring a memory from the past into the present? Now, every memory from the past, when it is dragged into the present, has to be dragged through the accumulative memories that are there, which is our conditioning. And therefore, since memories are continuously accumulating in us, conditioning is also continuously accumulating in us, moment to moment. So every time we bring even the same memory into the present, it has a different view because the conditioning has been different. Therefore, is it that we only live in the present? Either it's the actual present or it's the present of the virtual reality which is running in our imagination. But we only live in the present. We can't go into the past, nor can we go into the future. That comes to the next misconception, and this thing about being repetitive and mechanical. Because this is again something that Krishnamurti has said many, many, many times. Isn't your life mechanical? Haven't you noticed it? So what have you? Your life, your thinking, your ways of acting are all mechanical, repetitive. What does mechanical mean? Like a machine. A machine has no spontaneity. It cannot have any attention. Now, is it ever possible that a human being can be without attention ever? Or is that again the conditioning of our education? Right from the young age to be told there are certain involuntary functions in the body, like your breathing and your heartbeat and the way your brain instantly responds to danger. So there are certain involuntary functions and there are voluntary functions. Or is it that when there is attention in that moment, then the whole spectrum is visible in what Krishnamurti calls insight? So, and that attention, is that not happening in every sensation and perception? Maybe it's for a very short time. So long as one is alive, is there not that quality of attention? So, can anything really be automatic, repetitive, mechanical? And this brings me to the last misconception for today. And this is about nature. Now, you know that Krishnamurti talks about nature in great detail. Thought has not created nature, the trees, the mountains, the rivers. But I have some difficulty in accepting this as it is. Because is it so? Does nature exist independent of my thoughts? Does nature exist independent of my senses telling me that that all this exists outside? Can I say that the mountain exists except as through the thought? So the world that I know, is it not the world of my mind? The world that I know, which I can talk about. That state of experiencing when I am in contact with whatever outside is whatever it is. But the moment it comes into the realm of expression, is it not the world of my thought? So, has not thought created nature, the trees, the mountains, the rivers that I can talk about? And therefore, I ask, why do we form these misconceptions? Is Krishnamurti an authority to us? And I would unhesitatingly say, of course he is. So, just to read a passage from what he said, go into it, sir. Please be skeptical. Don't accept a thing that the speaker says. Find out, investigate, not tomorrow, but now sitting there. Go into it, find out. Put your passion into it, not your fanaticism. Then you will begin to discover. Now, we listen to Krishnamurti making this statement, but do we really take on the responsibility of that investigation for ourselves? So, and not doing that, does it not bring about this complete absence of originality and creativity in our lives? And here one must say education is the primary culprit, because the essence of the education system is to teach conformity. Yes, sure, we allow a longer tether, a longer rope, but however long the rope, so long as it is tethered to a stake, the freedom is restricted to the length of the tether. So why is it that we teach conformity in subtle and gross ways and not allow that originality, that creativity to flower? So what is this importance of creativity in living? He has no authority. He does not follow anyone because he is a light unto himself. And that a light arises from self-knowledge. It is the liberation that comes into being when the individual completely understands himself. The religious man is one who is creative, not in the sense of painting pictures or writing poetry, but there is in him a creativity which is everlasting, timeless. And then Krishnamurti goes on to say in this context about attention, observe a tree completely. Listen to the sound of the breeze in the tree, birds fluttering, landing on the trees, calling of an evening. Just to listen, to observe. When you do that, the implication in that observation is that you bring all your attention to it. It's like focusing strong light on something. Then that very light, that very flame destroys that which is turned on. So we are now talking about this flame. In chemistry, they talk about the heat triad. For a flame to burn, it requires three things. There has to be fuel, there has to be oxygen, and there has to be a certain temperature, a heat maintained. If one of these three is missing, the flame goes out. I'm bringing that as a simile for the human being. Every human being is born with this flame. It can't be given to him. That flame is that flame of life, and every being has it. But he needs these three: the fuel, the oxygen, and the heat, if that flame is to survive and blaze. So, what is the fuel? Are not sensations the fuel? And what is the oxygen which maintains that flame? Is it not desire? What is that thing which provides the heat? Attention itself. So when you have this combination of sensations, desire in attention, in that flame, the sensations and the desire are burnt, are they not? And the heat remains. So the question to me here is, what will keep this flame alight and blazing? So, to return to the beginning, I started with the Katha Upanishad. That was a story from the Upanishad. What understanding does it reveal to me? So, to me, it's the essential story of Nachiketa. There are three characters: Vajasrava, the father, Nachiketa, the son, and Yama representing the timeless. Vajasrava is the self-me mind who thinks about happiness and self-preservation, attempts to cheat death by making worthless or insincere offerings, just as ourself does all the time. Nachiketa is that quality of discrimination which is questioning, is this right? Is this right? And Yama is the energy of the timeless, where the questions go and the answers come from. So, is it possible to be original and discover the meaning for oneself every time afresh? So, there is no learning from somebody. You are learning as you walk, as you explore, So, there is no authority. So, the questions I now have for everyone, including myself, from all this quiche which I've put together, is one. We have money, intellect. So the questions are, we have money, intellect, education, job, yet we are afraid to chart our own path, blaze our own trail. Why? Why are we hesitant about being original and creative? Why are we always seeking to conform to what the majority or the society does? Why do we need their validation for everything? Why this perpetual search for illusion of security through conforming? And does having money, intellect, education, job itself dampen the flame instead of encouraging it?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Gopalan. Thanks a lot. Very thought-provoking discourse. You have given us lots of food for thought. Since Harshji has to leave at 12 o'clock, may I request Harshji to please go ahead with his observation, which will be followed by Dr. Gajanan Rao. Harshji, please.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Right. So, lots of things you said, Gopalanji, and you're perfectly right. I can see that your purpose is to be provocative, because there are many things to say about many things that you said. We could talk about fact and actuality, we could talk about understanding, what does it mean, we could talk about thought and imagination. You mentioned all these things, and but if I can say something more general, these seeming contradictions and in what Krishnaji has to say, misunderstandings or whatever, they basically arise from paying too much attention to the words, as you have said that he is using, right? Now, I may, now let me say something provocative as well. I would suggest that when we listen to a talk of Krishnaji's, the words, the description, what he's saying is not the actual content of the talk. The actual content, and he says it explicitly, all his life he has said it, that what he wants to do is to point to a state of intelligence, an awakening of intelligence, a quality of mind, whatever you want to call it, which is capable of observing the truth, which is capable of not getting caught up in maya or illusion or all of that. And that is his interest. So I would suggest that don't listen to the words, but ask yourself this question. What state of mind would you have to be in to be able to say the things that he's saying? Where is he speaking from? What is that state of mind? Because that is what he's showing you. That is what I think he's pointing to us. Not this much about meditation and this. This is a disservice, I think, that is being done by, say, things like YouTube and even to some extent the theme books. I've been involved in producing these, so I'm guilty as well. But when it says there's a 20-minute excerpt of Krishnaji talking about meditation, it gives the feeling that this is what he talks about meditation, or he talks about relationship, or love, or this, like many people do. Many wise men over the years have spoken about these things. And certainly he has interesting things to say about it. But one of the things he was very clear about, so I used to record his works, was that he said, you must see the whole talk as a unit, because the whole talk is an exploration. And that's what it is. That is the process which he is actually asking you to not sit back and be passive, but to undertake with him. That's what's happening. It's not what he's talking about, but this process of inquiry that he is wanting us to engage in. And just to take a bit of the talk out is to lose sight of the fact that there is this process of inquiry. So I'm saying don't listen to the words. Just ask this very different question. How is he able to say all this? Can we look at the world around us and say all this about relationship? Why not? I think that's probably sufficient from me. Let others speak. So what I was saying is that these misunderstandings and contradictions arise mainly because we are dealing about the Krishnamurti's talks, teachings on the level of words. If you are looking at it on the level of words. And I was suggesting that there is something else that is happening during a talk. And we should maybe forget about the words, not even think of the subject of what he's talking about, but pay attention instead to his quality of intention, the quality of the mind, which is raising a question for us. What quality of mind do we need to have to be able to see truth, to see with clarity, to not be confused? So that is, and actually, I'll say something which I didn't say before. I was responsible for doing translations into other languages. So we produced a cassette with, say, a French translation. But he said, no, you must have on the tape not just the French, but also the English. So we put the English on the left stereo channel and the French on the right stereo channel. And he said, this is because even if they don't understand the English, the sound of my voice is also carrying a message. The way I speak is also carrying a message. That's about where, so that's one of the things to say, that it isn't, it's more, there's something non-verbal happening which we need to pay attention to. And also that, I've lost the thread of what I'd been saying before. So anyway, maybe Gajananji is ready to speak.
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Yeah, we can.
Well, I wanted to, half a minute, I take really thank Gopalan. I'm very fortunate to be here to hear him. I never heard him at a length like this, except his writings now and then that come in the email. Thank you, Mr. Gopalan. We are very happy. And I also ask why he hadn't spoken at so many occasions, on so many occasions where we had talks, 4 talks, 5 talks in gatherings. Maybe he had shied away, I think. Otherwise, he should have spoken. Such clarity, such boldness, such authority. You're right. I think we are sort of carried by winds as they come. we don't challenge ourselves and act many times. We don't have the strength to stand authority, and we succumb more often than not. It's an eye-opener to me, sir, your talk today. I have heard him say mantras are nonsense maybe, but he had also said 3 days ago in a lecture, mantras in some old lecture. You don't go to temples perhaps, he said. When you go to a temple, large one, go inside and listen to the mantras that are chanted. You know, sir, the mantras that are chanted, they always say we, us. Even the most powerful Gayatri, the content is give us that light. Let us understand that light through the sun or whatever. I don't remember the exact words, but it is asking for us all that wisdom, that jnana. So it is for us. Togetherness is in any mantra chanted in Sanskrit. So it does attach a lot of importance. Probably, as he said, it does attach a lot of good tradition, rich tradition. He wouldn't like us to throw away. He said the tradition in Eskimos followed. They would bring a goat or some flesh and would like all the family and neighbors to share. So they had such generosity. That tradition was rich, therefore, that way, inviting others to come and share whatever one had. There is no selfish thought till he said the white man entered the place. So he has said two things. It's for us to understand, not blame him for conflicts in himself. But I would want to ask Gopalan sir to explain a bit. What does it mean when you say truth? It's not reality, right? What would you interpret truth as in words? Is it equivalent to God? Is it equivalent to that unknown vastness? Or what is it? You didn't bring that word maybe today. You said fact. And then, when the mind is silent, meditative, not a thought crossing. I don't know the state. I am imagining, as you said, thought imagines. But I do think there could be a state of mind like that. Occasionally we have gone through, we don't recognize. So that silent mind, the empty mind, is it something that walks very near to the other? The content gone of the consciousness, does it give a lot of space to enter another world? So, right? And intelligence, you said, is nothing to do with divinity, the way I listened. But intelligence uses thought. And when it does use thought, then it doesn't go and press an atomic burst for destruction. So intelligence is goodness, then intelligence is some divinity in it, or intelligence is divinity itself. I would like to know from you these two things: truth, silent mind, and this. When he said, refers to an innocent child, very innocent child, just born and growing. He said, sir, they are with it because of the innocence they have. I've heard him say that. If others have heard him, I'd be glad to be seconded. Innocence is something. So he said, sir, let the child continue in you for a long time. Don't throw it out as you're growing. They're really very valuable suggestions for good life, for a conflictless life. And we always lived by authority. Now for 2 days I lived authority by Swaminath and Gopalan. I don't know. I am influenced by words, and particularly people talk after going into all this for a long time, not completely laying your science away, but I have a feeling scientific minds can maybe understand these things better. So the old and the conflict between the old and the new. The new not allowing the old to come in. The new mind, let us say. The new mind is not contaminated with the past, is what I understand, what he says also. So the new mind, if it lets the old consciousness come in, no more new. So we are here as teachers to teach children to come with a new mind to live with, wiping away all the contamination by the consciousness, which is the old. He says that is a possibility. If the teachers become that, then maybe children, I don't know what is the way to put it to your child, to reject the old or set aside the old. It can come in when necessary, but he needn't come and interfere in all that you do every time. But this is a few little muddling of things I have, especially listening to him for so many years. He said once, I was sitting very near, "Sir, in spite of all this, we don't really understand it. Understand that thing which he says, the other." You know what he said? So subtle you miss it. So simple, so subtle you miss it. So these are really great mantras for us. There is something in all this to understand. And your talk today really gave us, me at least, a lot of boldness to be myself. I would think I am nothing. I can't do a thing in a way, now and then. You really brought in a little flame to everybody. I don't know if it is oxygen desired. Like that conversation between Narada and Mahavishnu is very interesting to understand Maya completely. Yes, sir, please tell us a few things I asked you. And one day, or 2-3 days, I don't know, after he finished his talk, he was in the room. He seems to have asked, I wasn't there, what was he talking today? Sir, I don't know, but it was a very good talk. Somebody said, but I didn't know what I talked. That gave us to understand something else talk sitting in him, really. A kind of eerie feeling one had. Sir, proceed. I don't want to say anything more. I really like to meet you sometime when weather allows it. The coronavirus goes away. Come to Valley often. I've stopped. Gopalan sir, tell us something more about some things I asked.
Sir, I'm not
Thank
a
you.
found to give all the answers. The questions are for all of us to give answers. But I will just take that one point you raised about truth. Can we ever know truth? This is again the problem of language. Knowing truth is a state of being in it, and when you're being in it, you don't know it. So this knowing and known, the English language it's a difficulty there. So, but it's not as hopeless as or as pessimistic as you put it, because I think in every moment of experience that we have, the opportunity is given to be in it and experience it. We don't have to talk about it afterwards. But somewhere, this whole attempt...
In what?
See, this...
experience.
Whatever we are doing, mundane or serious, is it possible that one's complete attention is what one is doing? Because the way technology helps us to multitask is to bring in inattention. And therefore, I think it becomes more and more difficult to be attentive to something, because we've got into the habit of multitasking and something else has to be running. And we have to be making better use of the time available. That's a commercial aspect, better use. These are very deeply in. But at least in education, and particularly at the younger ages, where this pressure is not yet there, can we really stretch that period where attention can flower? And this, the government has now given the opportunity. I don't know how many will take it, but they have said you can start school from the age of 3. from the age of 3 to the age of 10, that's the best time to have the school. I think after that we have lost the children really. But none of us can teach in a school of that kind because we know too much. we need we need young people who can move at the level of the children, have that match that energy and go with them. That requires a completely different team.
But at least tell us, if not an answer. You said there is a tree, there is a mountain. Which you look at it, as you are absorbed by it and the beauty of it, you have got very near to it, to the extent that there is somebody singing, you become that if you're interested in music and you have lots of love for it. So there is this merging together, that, what is it called? What do they call it? One, Dvaitam. So undivided states of you or that. So there, where is thought? You also said, even in that, where he says a tree and a mountain, the thought completes it. Something like that, you said, didn't you?
Yeah, this is our difficulty from a very, very early age in life. We're encouraged to express, record, and then there is the recognition, the applause for it. So we take that as granted. So we need this validation from outside. It's like even a football game. There's no fun in a football game if the stands are empty and nobody's cheering. So the cheering is as much a part of the playing. If without one, the other is useless, is how we look at it. So we may talk about doing something for its own sake, but do we know what it means to do something for its own sake? And is that not something one brings in at a very early age in life? Somewhere this whole model of education which we have, which is tower blocks, all tables lined in a row, and then a year by year progress, and then an exam, it takes the opportunity out for that.
Child in the beginning does that, something by herself or himself, building something, all absorbed. But then we are habituated to run to parents and say, come and see Amma how it is. That is already coming. Thanks to our help.
Right.
One's appreciation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
My pranams to Shobaji when you go home. Or when you're in home, maybe. Yes,
Special thanks to Dr. Saab
Sir.
for coming and giving this sacred path for technology purpose also. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Must let others talk, sir. We are usurping that time. The members
Okay.
are Dr. Verma here.
Mr. Verma was saying something.
No, it is all because he's not there now. Mr. Tankha has left, I think, this.
Tankha had gone.
Apna naam
He
kya
has
hai?
already warned it.
Because he said,
Hello,
what
I
triggers
Dinesh
it.
Wagmare. I wanted to ask one question to Mr. Swaminathan.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Can
Go
you
ahead, Dinesh. Go ahead.
Sir, I want to know the clarification on one point that Krishnamurti said, suppose I am having any deep-rooted emotional trauma or something in my psyche, which is very deep-rooted, say an experience of the old hurt feeling. Krishnamurti said that if you see the truth of it, if you perceive it and your perception is there of the truth of it, then it will be automatically dropped. So, practically it doesn't seem to happen. So, what you have to say is, what is the misconception involved in this?
Yeah. See, when we listen to him giving that suggestion, are we already attempting that suggestion saying, if we do this, this result will come and it will come in this measured time, which I should be able to recognize. So there is this deep trauma. I am giving my attention to it. I'm staying with it, but it is not going yet, which means I already have the expectation that it should go. Right?
That's
But
right.
it's very difficult to watch that this expectation is there at very, very, very subtle levels. So to be able to do something, I can't say without an expectation. I can only say, can I be aware deep down of the motive that is driving me to do everything? Can I be aware of the motive at that time? Not post-mortem in hindsight in analysis. So can I, in anything that I do or where I am, can my attention be so complete that I'm also aware of what is it that I'm seeking through this? If I am not seeking, will my thought even rise?
But can any such action be without motive?
So can I be aware of the motive? Not say there should be no motive, but can I be aware of what is this motive? I want freedom from this suffering, or I want to experience that state of peace. What is that motive? Can I just name it for myself?
Okay. So you mean to say that
Yes,
one has to be totally with it.
That's right.
Thank you, Agmarya. Give opportunity to ask someone else, please.
Harshadji, you want to say something?
He's not there, I think.
आपका नाम क्या है सर?
Harshadji, yeah, go ahead.
Are you able to hear?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
One thing which Gopalan sir has not talked about, but maybe use different word, is this thing called awareness. So what is awareness which is not thinking? Such as, so image which comes to my mind is like in a dark room, there are many people, they are walking and they are colliding with each other because they are not able to see it. But if someone turns on the light, then these people, they can avoid colliding with each other. So our mind is also like that. There are many thoughts which are going on without awareness, which is like being in the dark. So these thoughts will create many problems, fear, anger, jealousy, all that. But if this light of awareness comes, then these thoughts can exist, but they will not create any problem. They will avoid creating problem. So the main thing in this field of spirituality or religion is about awakening of this awareness which is there in us, but it is buried under many layers of thinking. And this awareness is not awakened, and so our life becomes full of problems. So this is one thing which that is the real intelligence. And what happens that when we study in schools and colleges, we acquire too much knowledge of the world which is outside, but we have not looked inside, like when we get angry, what is behind this anger, why it comes. So when this kind of question, what is boredom, what is jealousy, how does it come? So looking inside, maybe there is this awakening of awareness or intelligence may come. That's what I will finish.
Thank you, Harshad bhai. Prakashji, yes, please. Go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Still muted.
Prakash Maheshwari.
Then Savita ji. After that, Savita ji. Any problem?
He is not able to unmute himself.
Yes, Savita ji, please ask Savita ji to ask the question. Please
Yes,
raise
sir.
it.
Yeah,
Yes,
go
sir.
ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Balan, so my question is to you. You said like there is an old trauma and I am not willing to get over it, right? Because I'm holding on to it. And unless I can see the real cause why I'm holding, what is my motive to hold on to this? Because as Krishna ji said, there may be a certain situation, but to suffer or not to suffer is my choice, isn't it? So how do, I mean, all said and done, sir, but there must be some way that I can actually remember all this when that trauma comes up and start showing up from the past instead of letting me experience the newness of this. Yes, sir, thank you.
So somewhere deep down in our own conditioning, is not hope a very integral part of our life? We think hope has a great place.
Mr. Soni, please mute yourself. Mr. Soni, please mute yourself. Nihal Soni.
Yes.
So we live with hope in us all the time. And is that not one of the conditionings we have got from the education system that we have all grown up in? Hope is a very essential part of that tradition. But what is hope? And is there such a thing as hope? And what is the implication of hope? Why should we have hope? Who wants hope? This is something that needs to be questioned. Is there hope at all? If there is no hope and one remains where one is, then Krishnamurti points out that passion may rise. Now, this is something one will have to experience and ask for oneself. And that is why the last question I had asked was, is it that when you have this affluence and education, we have this comfort, and therefore the situation where we have to even hold on to hope doesn't arise because we have too much of everything? So does excess really breed insensitivity? Right? And this is one of the statements of Krishna that comes to me again and again and again, whether it's the Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Gita. The statement that when I want to bless my devotee, I send him poverty. So do we have to wait to come to that stage to learn? I mean, after having all this, are we going to wait for that to come to us? Then it's not being intelligent.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, that's what I was experiencing. Yeah, I'm sitting on the brink thinking, and some personal trauma will come in and stop me from actually, having my own way or, not conforming to what is expected out of me and to do what I want to do, what will make me happy. And of course, it will contribute to the world, but I'm just sitting on the brain thinking of some old personal suffering will come and it will block my progress, to go to that path because it's out of the way. Okay, I'm not supposed to do that. I'm supposed to be a Marwari, make wealth, make properties for my children. I'm supposed to, be affluent and all that, but I don't want that. So, it's very challenging for me all the time. The inquiry I have to keep bringing back to myself that why can't I let this old conditioning go and my new self to emerge, which wants to live a carefree life, be near a nice brook, river, nothing to do, just be with oneself, do whatever social good you can do, be a good citizen, and that's it.
But see the trap we are falling into. I want to be a good human being. I want to have a pleasant life. I should be able to contribute to the others, right? And there is this story of the Buddha, right? Where he talks about that, imagine that this entire universe is an ocean and there's one tortoise in it and it stays at the bottom of the ocean. It comes up once in 100 years for a breath of air. And on this ocean surface, one coconut is floating. Now he asks his Shishya, what is the probability that when the tortoise comes up once in that 100 years, his head will strike the coconut? And the Shishya says, that's next to impossible. And the Buddha says, that's the possibility of getting a human birth. So having got it, what are you going to do with it? So even these small innocent requests, if hopes I may say, of being able to do good to others, not inflicting suffering on somebody, right? Is it too small? Do we really yearn to break free of this? Why does this I rise before I even ask it to come? I didn't ask it to come. But before I know it, it has come and it is sitting in front of me, right? Why does that happen? And obviously, no act of mine, no wish of mine is going to change that. Something else is going to change. What is that? What is that quality of attention where I can be aware of it rising even as it is rising?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So between thoughts, the gap that we get between pulses, that is where we have to catch the thought from becoming into a desire. Before it becomes into a desire, watch the whole process.
Yeah, but by the time I have that conversation, things have already gone ahead.
Can
I just be aware of it rising? Just be aware, not with any motive to change it, divert it. Just be aware, not in words. Just know it, recognize it, and it's there.
Yes.
Can we have some other questions? Can we have other questions?
Vijay Chhabra sir, please sir. Sir, previous time we could not allow him. So let Vijay Chhabra say something. Problem with Vijay Chhabra?
Yeah. We can hear you now. Yes.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody is hearing you.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, okay. So, you, Gopal sir, you brought in this myth of Nachiket, which has been fantastically, it's been very fascinating for me. In fact, somehow that seems to me one of the probably most valuable myths I have, from very early been and felt very enigmatic and also very inspiring. Because like a young boy, this is how it comes to me, that young boy at very early sees through the game. That's very interesting, that you grow old, you read this, that, you hear, listen to and all kinds of talks and explore different philosophies. But here's a young boy who sees through the game. He is ready to go to the end, kind of, wants a dialogue with the death. So he says, and death says, ask me anything but not this. No dialogue on death. Ask me, I'll give you whatever you want. And he says, no, I'm not interested in anything. So somebody who sees through the game so early, so quickly, and says, I want to go, because at the end of all that, I have to come to you. So why not now? So that kind of urgency, that kind of yearning that is expressed through this myth. So that's been very, enlightening. But at the end, when you were asking this question, that, it's like, in my own words, I would say that we understand what is, some way connect to the feeling of fullness of heart, and which there's a sense that's what resolves everything. And your question seems to suggest there's something that has no cause. What will bring it about? What will bring about something which has no cause? So this is how I listen to your question at the end. So, and you can only see whatever is being driven. You can wake up to the motives, you can wake up to whatever is happening, but to demand or put a question, what will bring about something that has no cause, what will you do?
No, but if you can see that I is the cause of all my problem and it is sitting there before I am even ready for it, then I have to ask, look, is there some way this I will not be there when it will not be ahead of me, ahead all the time like this? That is why that Maya, what is it that causes this fellow to rise up in the first place? Not to add to it, not to strengthen to it, all that we can do. And that is where again and again it comes, it has to come to you. So you see, we keep talking of content of consciousness, but today we are able to understand. Today, I don't think I would have understood this 20 years ago. Today, with this cloud computing and all that is happening here, one can understand that memory doesn't necessarily have to be stored inside the brain. It could all be outside somewhere, and our brain could just be a receiver which is accessing memory. The moment you visualize it that way, it becomes clear that there is only one common pool of memory. So you will change that common pool. That becomes so clear to understand. So the only task that I have is, look, can I watch this in myself? I don't have to do anything in the outside world. At least at this point in life, can I just watch here and watch it coming and see what happens?
Right. Will you say that this sense of separation, which is somewhere fuzzy, when you look at, where you draw a line, like the general watching can happen, you watch, listen, senses are, awake to whatever extent they are. And the I seems to come to being or comes into force in a way, only when there is this sense of separation. And when you actually look at it, where do you draw a line? I don't see a line. It's the moment you watch it, it begins here, and there is actually no line. And that how does that arise? That is for me this sense of separation is what makes for me in a way. That's how there's a very nice poem written by an Austrian poet who says, "What separates you is you." Very succinctly, she put it this way: what separates you is you. So you is made up of your separation, which is imaginary in a way, which is fantasy, which is illusory, which doesn't, it's not there. The moment you question it, it's not there.
Yes.
It doesn't stand test examination.
True, but the message of Krishnamurti, or the authority that he is that just because you have memory, I doesn't have to arise. And that is why to me the question is, thought is an instrument. there's a binary situation. Either the self-me mind will be operating the thought, or intelligence will be operating the thought. Both are at different planes. It's an on-off switch. You choose between this or this. So we are used to thinking that we operate that instrument of thought all the time. What does it mean to allow intelligence to operate? Which means the memory is not destroyed. The memory is there. But this illusion of I doesn't rise. And which is why I can only watch it rising. Because unless there is a motive, will the I rise? So to be able to watch the motive of every thought as that thought arises, that obviously means a pace of life where you don't have too many things to do. Your attention is not pulled in 10 different directions. Obviously, there is a style of life which facilitates that. And I think that is where Krishnamurti's exhortation to take retreat makes sense. So when you take a retreat, you are freed from all those burdens. But then to fill the time, if we need to have a book to read and then somebody to have a dialogue with, we are again seeking that same filling up of the time. That's its habit. So sometimes just to be able to take a retreat and stay quiet and see what happens from that.
I'm in retreat. I'm in Jella. The last 3 months, I'm quarantining myself.
Very good.
Sure, he's lying on a hill slope.
I didn't tell the authorities I'm in this business of quarantining. So, yes.
Chhabda sir, if you are in retreat, please arrange YouTube conversion of all these lectures with name Indore circle. I am requesting to everybody whom do it, please do it and put all these lectures on YouTube with the name Indore circle. That is my request. If anybody can help me, it is welcome. You are only in retreat, you can help.
Chhabda Sahab can do it, yes, we can.
Yeah, that can be done. That can be done. You send the recordings, we'll put it on YouTube.
Yeah, I used to send recording to you all the time.
No, I've got 2 or 3, not all. I've got 2 or 3 when I requested you. But we can do that. That can be done.
Yeah, I will be going it to do. But you have to put name Indore circle, because this is my problem, that Indore people can also listen on YouTube by clicking Indore circle. That is what I want.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
One small question, sir, to Gopalan ji. Whether in watching
last question, as usual,
last question.
Last question. Take 5 minutes only.
Whether in watching, cognition is there, which allows you to be to see that arising in me, because that suffering doesn't allow you to go to retreat. You see that whatever it is, it may be anger, whatever it is. Once it is there arising, whether cognition is there in watching.
So that raises a question, who is it that watches? Is it thought that watches? Thought cannot watch, it can only recognize. So it's not thought that is watching. So what is it that is watching? That means whatever is watching has to be even before thought. And thought can only come and interfere in the watching. Just to be aware that thought with its memory comes and interferes. Let that awareness have its action. The moment I try to say these steps should happen, that's again thought getting into it. Can we understand and experience what it means to let awareness have its own action?
Awareness without cognition.
Cognition is thought. Cognition is thought. So awareness is not cognition.
Okay.
So should we end, Jain Sahab, now?
Yes, sir. But Swaminathan Gopalan will have to come back again, because so many people wanted to have dialogue with him. This is the